everyone, welcome back to Poetry Matters with Mackenzie
and Hadley.
This week we're going to be talking about Love in the Asylum by Dylan Thomas. Since you guys loved our last video on a Dylan Thomas poem, we're going to continue on with that topic and be talking about Love in the Asylum this week.
Cool.
So as usual, we're going to start out by talking about what the poem's about and kind of break it down so you guys can understand the meaning. This poem is really pretty hard to figure it out at first, and so I was really confused, and I read it like 16 times, and I was doing some online research about Dylan Thomas. And what I kind of found out was that it's most likely about his wife, Caitlin. And he wrote a series of poems about his wife because, like, it's his wife. She's probably going to be his muse at some point. And so this one, it starts to make a bit more sense once you start to imagine that it's about his wife, Caitlin. So the poem's kind of it starts out like with the line, "A stranger has come." And so that's kind of saying that, like, there's a dynamic change in their relationship. And the poem's kind of about their relationship and how it's kind of like a metaphor and that their relationship is like an insane asylum. And Dylan Thomas, I'm assuming, like, he's narrating as himself in this poem. And he's saying that he's kind of crazy, and but Caitlin's also crazy because she's in love with him, and a lot of it is that she's the light in his life, and he's resisting her lightness into his life, and he's like staying negative. But towards the end, he kind of adapts and begins to accept her as a positivity in his life. And they kind of like end up happy, even though there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's pretty rough most of the time.
He also compares her to a bird when he says, "A girl as mad as birds." This could be positive or negative, like she was saying. Birds can be crazy and batty, or birds can be graceful and elegant, and things like that. And I think that that's kind of his point. At different times, she's different things. And sometimes she's really angry, and sometimes she's really, like, crazy, I guess you could say, because of the insane asylum. And then sometimes she's the light of his life, and she keeps him going, and he turns to her for a lot of things. So I think their relationship is multifaceted.
But that definitely goes on how it's like really intense, it's really up and down, and it's crazy, which relates to the title, Love in the Asylum. One thing in this poem that's significant would be the repetition of the word deludes and deluded. This word means to mislead or fool, and it's used as such throughout the poem. A primary example of when it's used, and one of my favorite lines in the poems would be, "She deludes the heaven-proof house with entering clouds." And so this line is definitely really heavy-hitting, and in my opinion, it's extremely beautiful because it's talking about how the house is heaven-proof, like the house is their relationship, and she tricks him by seeming like dark like he is, and then when she enters the house, she's entering with clouds, and clouds are like an allusion to heaven, like she is a heavenly aspect in his life that's extremely negative.
A lot of what he says, like clouds, she said, could represent heaven, but also clouds could represent storm or something negative. And a lot of the stuff he said, this was like a really big deal because a lot of the stuff he said had two meanings, so you could really get either or out of it, and I think like that is huge because clouds could be an allusion to heaven, or clouds could be an allusion to storms that cause like anger and tension between the two. So I think that's really, really hard hitting. Also, we found that he uses a lot of other contrasting ideas like bolting and plume. A plume is an arrangement of feathers, and
so it's like soft and fluffy, and there's contrasts with bolting, which bolts are like hard, they're metal, they're meant to hold something bolted together, and these contrasts, a lot of this poem is contrasts and ambiguities.
Yes. There's a lot of imagery. I don't know if it's like literal, but you can really like see the scenes happening in your head. You can relate them to things that you felt. So when he says, "On the madhouse boards worn thin by my walking tears," you can really see him like pacing around, being upset, crying, and things like that. And then he follows that saying, "And taken by light in her arms at long and dear last," saying like she's the person that can make him feel better, even though she was also the person that hurt him. So I think that's.
And I really think it's significant. It says, "at long and dear last," meaning like he's waited all his life for something like this. And it's so important that he's finally let her in to be a part of his life, and that she is the light. He's taken by the light in her arms.
Cute.
So cute.
Okay, so this poem, we thought the tone was really eerie, obviously, because it's like a insane asylum. And the first thing you think about a insane asylum is like creepy people, and this was a really creepy line. Yet she deludes with walking the nightmarish room, and I can kind of like see someone in the dark, like paranormal activity kind of thing, walking back and forth, like weirdness. But we also felt like it was romantic.
The title is Love in the Asylum, so like that's again contrasting love in the asylum, romance, craziness, and so it is. There's a tone about how much he loves her. It's very passionate, even though it is really creepy and eerie. Yep. That concludes this week's episode of Poetry Matters. We were talking about Love in the Asylum. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos. I don't know where the thing is.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.